Thank you for being here. Can you tell something about you, about your work, or what do you do?
hmm Sure, yeah. Well, thanks very much for having me on to start with. Yeah, I've been working mainly with what you can call conscious dance for the last 30 years. That's one aspect of this. But yeah, it really comes from a passion of like deepening awareness and awakening our potentials. And I've studied many different things: shamanism, tantra, creativity. One of the main teachings for me is about conscious parenting. I've been a parent for about 26 years now. So that's been a huge part of my life path as well, to integrate all of these things.
So let's talk about Tantra. What's Tantra?
Yeah, it depends who you ask, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, in its purest form, Tantra is really about weaving everything together and coming back to a state of wholeness. And it seems to be in the West that people have taken an interest in sexuality and have included that. But I would suggest that the deeper teaching is really one of complete embodiment. It's like it's not excluding the body in the spiritual journey. Rather, it's recognizing the spiritual body is spirit as much as everything else is. And sexuality being one of the strongest forces for the human being, when you bring this together with awareness, intention, prayer, ceremony, it's like you can really turn it into a meditative form, and instead of just like a base lustful form for its own sake, suddenly you can start to like rise with the energy and travel through the spine and do all sorts of different kinds of magic with that kind of energy. But it's really activating the life force and combining it with intention, prayer, and togetherness, and deepening in intimacy. Yeah, that's my view. That's my experience of this work. And it's not just about sexuality, it's about everything. It's about unknotting the whole spine. It's about connecting to our sacred essence. And in some ways, it's really about living a full, complete life without excluding anything. Finding a way of embodiment with heart.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me too. It's actually accepting all part of yourself and to love them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, permission is a big thing, but permission with clarity and permission with integration. Because if you take it to the extreme, you just give permission for anything, and there's no meta organizing presence, which is like choosing and selecting. And so integration for me is also a very important part of the understanding about the nature of Tantra and all things, is instead of treating it as a sexual or a separate aspect of yourself, is how can this energy be included with everything else, your power, your identity, your vision, your heart, how can it be included and woven together? Which is, as I understand, that's what Tantra means, to weave together, to integrate, to harmonize. Yeah. But in the Western world, if you look at it through the contrast of what we're not allowed to be, what is denied, what is suppressed, what is judged, what is excluded, yeah, and called spiritual for excluding things, yeah, then you can start to understand more importantly what it is to weave everything together. And for me personally, it represents like a whole new psychology of being, actually, this multidimensional integrated self. Which is very different to this idea of a personality locked into thoughts and beliefs, and what people call the matrix. And when you're caught and bound by your personal history, personal story, so you find a deep freedom as you come into the heart, fully embodied, including your emotions, sensation, intellect, and everything else. So inclusion and integration for me are key words in this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just an activity. That's another thing. A lot of people get involved in the techniques, because there are many techniques in Tantra and all sorts of spiritual practice. And techniques are one thing, but what you realize through the technique is another. So the technique is a vehicle to take you into certain states of consciousness and energy. But once you're arriving in those states, then to savor, to enjoy, to expand, to recognize, to realize. And otherwise, sometimes you get on this kind of hamster wheel of, I must do this technique, must do this prayer, must do this focused practice. And you haven't got a bigger context, a vision in which all of that is happening. So for me, the paradigm behind Tantra and all these kind of integrated spiritual movements is really about full awakening, full embodiment. And it's like recognizing the fullness of the human species, our possibilities. Yeah. So we're human angel and human animal connected. one being altogether.
And what's embodiment?
Yeah, this is good. It's good. I love to look at words and actually really go deeply into the inquiry to get a deeper grasp of it. Yeah, it's interesting because I work with a distinction which I call ground of body, which is on the horizontal axis, and ground of being, which is on the vertical. Yeah. And when you put these two together in a circle, for me, this represents our wholeness. Yeah. Now, if embodiment was just about being on the horizontal line, yeah, then you'd live, according to the chakras, you'd live in the lower three centers. Yeah, power, sex, and money, and human personality. And that would be your belief of this is myself, this is the arena of my experience. So embodiment just into the lower three centers, for me, is not so interesting. Yeah. And I think people often make this mistake to think I got to get grounded into my body. Now, for me, the deeper wisdom is to ground into your being, grounded into your body. Yeah. Now, your being on this vertical axis represents your heart, your spirit, all of these abilities of vision, inspiration, healing, clairvoyance, remote viewing, and all sorts of things which are considered to be superpowers or magical abilities, which are all very natural to us, but they belong to our essence, our being, which in some way is not even physical. Yeah, it lives on this vertical timeline. So I could say I'm not of this world, but I'm in this world. Yeah. And when you start to speak in those terms, you start to recognize your ground of being is now grounded in the body. And this represents, in the perfect circle, the perfect cross. This is the original Christ cross, or the mystic cross. Yeah, it's not the cross of sacrifice, it's the cross of integration and balance, which is an alchemical symbol reminding us to be in this perfect alignment between the multidimensional self and the three-dimensional oriented personality. And it's in the integration, see, that you find full embodiment. Now, if you look at the difference, if you're, of course it's important to be in your body, in your emotions, sensations, energies. This is how we navigate on the earth. So there's no denial of your physical embodiment, emotional embodiment, sensual embodiment, sensation embodiment. And in this regard, embodiment simply means where you place your focus. Yeah? Like if you place your focus into your body, that's what you feel. If you place it into your thinking, that's what you enter into. Mm-hmm. So your focus is governing the direction of what we call embodiment. Your embodiment, which is quite humorous, is always here, always present, always alive. The only thing that is not embodied is your awareness of what's already here. So that there's some amusement inside of that. Yeah, you can't not be embodied. Do you see? It's your state. It's given. What you can be is not aware of it. You can be distracted in abstract thought, often a vision, in a memory, into the busyness of the future. So you may not notice that you're burning your fingers in the fire. Do you see? Presumably you would notice, hopefully. So it brings you back to your body, but this alignment of the ground of being and the ground of body for me is, I don't know, if you meditate on this and inquire into this, it's a big discovery because it relates to full integration. Again, it's the total allowance of all of your being, all the aspects.
There are many tools to get there, to integrate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a million billion tools. Yeah, I mean, when I teach, so for me, it's always a balance between what I call paradigm and practice. So the paradigm represents your view, or you could say your perception, your vision, your the way you look into the world, what you believe, where your values are, what you sense to be true. So it's your intimate subjectivity. So there's Guy's view, there's Filip's view, and you organize your world based on how you see the world. Yeah? Your seeing of the world governs and guides your behavior, your activity, your relationships, your creativity. If you shift your view, you also shift the possibility of new behavior emerging. Yeah. Now you can try and change on the outside, which for me is a very slow motion process. You change all the behaviors, and you can force yourself with willpower, discipline, action, motivation, which is what most people try and do, and it lasts for about a week, 10 days, 2 weeks maximum, because it's too much of an effort. Yeah, you're trying to change something from the outside. Yeah, but the transformation from within, the deepest thing for me is to shift the view, shift the paradigm, shift your perception. As you shift your vision, everything begins to line up with that. So, for example, if you're having what you call a bad day, so you wake up in this perception that you're feeling miserable, you're tense in your body, you're upset, you suddenly start to see a terrifying, terrible, miserable world over there. Yeah. Now you could run around trying to fix and change everything on the outside without recognizing what's causing your relationship with that is your own view. So what I love about the conscious dance process is you dance, you transform, you breathe, you open up and expand, and your view shifts. And what was initially miserable, depressed, stuck, trapped, suddenly becomes open, liberated, free, beautiful. And the same people on the dance floor are now your best friends and beautiful soulmates, whereas before they were strangers and weirdos and disconnected. Yeah. So the shifting of view, for me, is primary. Yeah. And then the behavior follows, and then the practices follow that too. So this is why I think the two things together, I'm going to keep saying to you about integration and harmony. I work a lot with this figure of 8 or the infinity symbol. Yeah. So on the inside is the paradigm shift. On the outside is the practices or the expression of that. So you could say from self-realization to self-expression. Yeah. But if you're just trying to force or push or discipline based just on the behavior, just on the tools, and you haven't understood your approach, why are you doing it? What's your purpose? What's your wish? What's your goal? What's your value? What's your aspiration? If you don't know those things, then the practice is going to be quite a shallow entertainment of the senses. Yeah. But if you've gone into the depth of like a vision quest, I'm really about opening up my whole spine, my whole energy field, my connection to spirit source energy, and I want to manifest this through this breathing technique, or through this walking meditation, or through this dance practice. Yeah. So I always teach the two things together, to give a little teaching on the paradigm shift, and then a practice which follows that, so you can practice manifesting the new paradigm.
My question is now, many people don't know why they are here. What's their purpose? Can you say something about it?
Yeah. See, I feel the question is back to front, not just the question, but even the approach towards this. Yeah. So the way it's been set up for us in the Western world is our purpose is over there. It's something to do, something to become one day, someday. So, at a basic level, you go to primary school, secondary, college to get to university. The purpose is to get to higher education. It's always out, it's on the next horizon. Once you got to higher education, it's get a good career, get up the ladder, get wealthy, get married, have a couple of kids and be stable, and off you go. So it's normally given from outside in. And if we study what we think purpose is, even to ask the question, who gave me that idea of a purpose in the first place? Is it my parental view? Is it a religious view? Is it a political view? Is it ideological? Or is it something I've really looked into when I sat on the mountain by myself, studying the nature of the great mystery of who and what I am, do you see? Have I taken time to subjectively really look intimately into myself and ask the simple question, what do I want in this life? What do I want in the world? What do I want to bring forward? So if it was possible, and it's not easily possible because all these ideas are embedded in the unconscious, but imagine you had a fresh canvas in front of you, which wasn't governed by parents' voices, your internal dialogue, religion, politics, ideology, even the best spiritual books in the world, but you're sat on a desert island with your blank canvas and you just feel into it for you. Yeah. So then the question comes intimately, what is my purpose? Not the purpose of the great mystery, the great God, the great future thing. What is Guy's purpose? Yeah. Now, to answer that question, you start to just check in with your gifts and your talents. Who am I? What are my possibilities? I've got 2 arms, 2 legs, I've got a brain, got a heart, got these capacities or this learning experience. How can I weave all of that together in a meaningful way, which also includes me? That's another thing. A lot of people relate purpose as some kind of sacrificial dance. It should be a great noble thing for the humanity, forgetting that you're part of the humanity that's also noble. Yeah, this is part of the sacrificial model, the old, what I'd like to call the old paradigm, which is gradually, quickly, hopefully dying out as this new breed of human comes forward that recognizes there's only one life here. Yeah, and as we start to access that one life between us, we also include ourselves in the adventure of expression. Now, in a very simple way, for me, the biggest purpose is simply to exist. Yeah? Are we awake enough, aware enough, present enough to notice our own aliveness? Yeah? Do you notice that you're in the gift of living right now? Or has it become ordinary? Has it become mundane? Has it become predictable? Do you not wake up into the miracle of like, wow, I can breathe, I can move, I can express, I can relate, I can touch, I can see, I can adventure. This is why I would say to come back to being like a child. It's not to be small again, but to have that fresh view, which is not conditioned by all these entrapments, all these kind of like rigorous, embedded matrix thought forms that we start to adhere to, believe in. Yeah. So the first stage I'd look at here is stripping out what is not your purpose. Right? It's like releasing, uneducating, undoing all the expectations people have of you, the standards, the goals, the values that have been imposed into your system. Clean yourself out, clean it up. Tune in, get to know yourself. Get to know yourself like really intimately. Who am I? How do I breathe? How do I move? How do I express? How do I feel? What do I really want? Yeah, and not think, oh, I can't have that because of this, or because of these people, or those people, or that religion, or that politics. What do I actually want? Honestly, natively, truly, instinctively. Yeah. And as you start to give yourself permission to live honestly, then your purpose becomes obvious. It's just one of self-expression. My purpose is to exist fully from who I actually am in authenticity and express that. Yeah. Now, just to give it some ground, I've discovered along the way that I'm a multidimensional being, that it's possible to be in spirit and body at the same time, that we are hearts. These are things, these aren't ideas for me. This has been discovered through meditation, journey work, and all sorts of other means and processes and realizations. Yeah? Who we are as a human being is this vast potential of possibility. Yeah? We have not just, I call them onboard possibilities, which is to do with my physical organism, but we also have non-local possibilities, things that we can access, that we tune into. And this is the future of human potential. It's not just my potential, it's the potential of what I can tune into and access. Yeah? If you want to test it out, do some Tai Chi, do some Qigong, and start to connecting to energy fields above and beyond the body. Start to breathe like the trees and the river and the mountains, and start to feel your relationship. And you start to realize you're a relational being. You're not a separate entity. Yeah? You're not a personality in this suffering of self, all by myself here to survive and suffer. You're an interconnected being together with all of life. Yeah, that's the original gift. Our original blessings. We've come here all together, all at once, to perceive existence from a multiplicity of angles. Yeah, but there's only one of us looking. Like right now, it looks like there's two of us looking. There's only one of us looking through four eyes right now. You see, it's like when you really get intimate with that and recognize there's only life here. So for me, the purpose is the uncovery of the truth, really. Yeah. Now, once you rest into that, and for many people, they think that's the end. Yeah. For me, self-realization is the beginning. Yeah. It's like that's the first stage, not the last stage. Yeah. This for me is like the future paradigm, because all the yogis have been looking at self-realization as the end goal. For me, that's like the baby step. The first step is recognize who you are. Yeah. Okay, I'm part of the oneness. From the oneness, what can I do? I can create. So the second step is self-expression and co-creation. Yeah, you start to collaborate. Yeah, projects, dreams, visions, activities. You start to recognize tribal awareness, the collective.
Brother said a lot of interesting and amazing stuff. You can see that his wisdom, it's really
You know, where are you in distraction? Where are you in confusion? Where are you in the past or the future? You know, and if you can locate that and do the healing work necessary to give love and attention and empathy there, then it releases its hold and the river starts flowing again, and you come back into this moment. You come back as you are, as all have been. You've never left this moment, really. You know, your awareness left temporarily as it got frozen into other previous moments. Yeah. And then you get to this like very, very simple. It's very, very easy. It's very simple. It's very uncomplicated. You know, it's not some intricate technique. It's not some even great, profound spiritual awakening. It's just the simple, ordinary, full, present livingness of life. Yeah. It simplifies, and really the feeling you wake up with is one of gratitude and possibility. Yeah. I recognize I'm connected. I recognize I've got all these gifts and potentials and access potentials. And, you know, where am I desiring to express? Where does my heart want to move?
Yeah.
But in order to get into this, see, it's really, I want to come back to this undoing. Yeah. A lot of people are still in the mentality of acquiring, you know, to have something. If realization was something you had, then you could just go and buy it down the spiritual supermarket, or go and get that and get all these kind of things. It's like, you know, having is an outside in approach again. It's when I have more of this, then I'll be happy. Yeah. Realization is I'm already it. It's already here. It's already now. I'm already full. I've always been full. You know, I just didn't notice it. I just didn't notice my own presence. Yeah. But if you really listen carefully, you know, to who and how you are, you realize you've always been present. You know, you're the same you've always been. It's so obvious, it goes unnoticed. Yeah. It's like, you know, so right now you're listening and you're watching and looking and engaged in this moment. But the one who's watching is you. You see, you might be doing something with the eyes or with the ears or with thinking, but the one who's experiencing all of that is you. Yeah. But when we start using language, we start saying, oh, I'm thinking about this, or I'm seeing this. We start to talk about the activity, not the one who's experiencing the activity. That's mean you never leave you. You're always you. You've consistently been you all the time. You always are. Yeah. Your state of awareness and presence is constant. I don't know about you, but when you realize that, it's quite relaxing. It's like you never left you. Yeah. Sometimes you get entangled in thoughts or in beliefs or other people's ideas and expectations, but you can untangle yourself and come back to the simplicity of presence. Here I am again. I'm here. You keep waking up into the present moment. Yeah. And that, the more you do that, the more consistent it becomes. Yeah. The more obvious it becomes. Yeah. You start to find it even ridiculous that I was believing thoughts. You know, why was I following that rabbit hole? You know, why was I falling into just sensation or just desire or just, you know, imagination? When I didn't recognize the one having the experience. People call that homecoming, yeah. Yeah, they make a big deal of it. It's like, you know, think angels and fanfares, but just from my experience, it's very ordinary in a beautiful way. You know, it's the most simple, ordinary thing. It's just like being a child again. You know, a child doesn't have any great pompous beliefs about itself. It just plays in the sand and swims in the sea and eats an apple. Yeah, but it's there. It's there in the activity. Yeah. I've just been swimming with my daughter today for the first time in a wild sort of open space, and she's just so delightful, moment to moment to moment. You know, the splash of the water, the you know, head under the water. It's like swimming, moving, giggling, laughing. It's like, where do you?
I want to comment something.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I remember talking with one woman, and she said the children or her daughter is one of her best teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I feel very blessed. I've been a parent for 25 years now. So I've got these very conscious, awake, lovely little reminders around me all the time. You know, I did many things. You know, I mean, I've been to hundreds of workshops, met many teachers and masters, and all sorts of saints and sages and shamans. You know, I've studied under most stones, left, right, and center. But actually, one of the biggest initiations for me was becoming a parent. You know, becoming a father. It's like this thing I talked to you earlier before about ground of being and ground of body. It's inevitable when you parent. This is love in action. It's constant, 24 hours a day. Your heart is always with your children. You know, you always want the best for them. You always want the health for them. The joy, when they're suffering, you want to hold them. You know, when they're ill, you know, with the temperature, you just want to be there for them, present. Yeah, enjoy their explorations and openings. It's like you move beyond this self-orientation that my life is just about me. You see, that separate self that is Narcissus, that is self-obsessed vanity and all these people call it egocentrism. It's like when you in this kind of thought form of the isolated self, then you suffer because that separated idea of a self can never get enough. But when you have children, for example, suddenly you expand beyond your notion of separate self and you realize, wow, it's me, my partner, the child. We're a team. Yeah? And you start to think not as an I, you start to think as a we, as an us. Yeah? All of my decisions are relational decisions. They're not separate decisions. Yeah? I say I'm talking to you, I negotiate with my partner, speak to my son. It's a relational decision. Yeah? Every decision as a parent is relational. You stop functioning as a separate being. Well, I did anyway, or have done. And when I work with students as well, suddenly I include them in my reality. When I'm teaching, I feel like we're in this together. I feel like there's, I'm multiple different perceptions all at once. Because we're in it together. When I'm not a separate person, me here, you over there. Even right now, I don't even know which country you're in, Philip. But it's like I sense we're closer than breathing right now. Do you see? There's something in this conversation between us where awareness is getting more and more present. And it doesn't matter the distance. It doesn't matter which country. It doesn't matter which time zone. All these kind of, superficialities in a way, we believe disconnect us. And none of it does. Yeah. The closer you get to your heart, the closer you get to your awareness, you realize you're connected all the time. So you never feel lonely. You never feel separate. You don't feel sad. You feel grateful and connected and simple and expressive and abundant. Yeah. And the beauty is this is given to every single being. It's given. It's not something you have to deserve or be good for or do certain behaviors for. It's given. Yeah. Our task is to realize it.
So, I want to comment it. So for me, the first step to connect to someone or to relate to someone, it's to connecting with yourself, the connection with yourself. So I don't know if I understood you with the you said something about that about self and narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you now you disagree with me or what do you mean with
Okay.
that?
Okay. So a lot of people say this. A lot of people say the first step is I must connect to myself before I connect to another.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say this in workshops, in teachings, in all sorts of books. Yeah? Right. Has anyone actually looked at that? Like really looked at that? Yeah. Like really done a deep inquiry into that sentence. Yeah? Right. Before I speak to you, did I spend a lot of time connecting to myself before I speak to you? Or did I start off looking you in the eye, listening to you, feeling you, connecting with you? Where did I start? Do you see? Now, in one way, you could say, well, I'm able to do that because years ago I connected to myself. Right? So you could always rationalize that sentence as being true. It's like because I did this healing work and that spiritual work and that compassionate work and that empathy work, that makes me more available to be present to you. Yeah? But if we're looking at the obviousness of reality, when the sun is shining, the sun is on your face. I didn't have to connect to the sun in my heart in order to feel the sun on my face. It's already there. Yeah? In this connection, you're already there. Do you see? And I'm meeting you. So I'm not dwelling here for hours, who am I, how am I going to be? It's like, what am I going to bring? So I just want you to study the reality of that sentence for yourself, okay? Yep. I know a lot of people say this. They always say this in relationships, got to connect to myself first before I can relate, got to heal this and this and this. Yeah. It misses the understanding that we're in this together. It misses the understanding that we are a quantum field that's interconnected. There is no separate self. That's the primary illusion, that you think you're separate, I think I'm separate. That illusion is what perpetuates all the suffering in the world. I think I have to connect to a separate self before I can connect to your separate self. It's an endless game of like separation versus separation. If you start from the perspective, there's one life here, and we are it. We are it, yeah? And we've always been it. And you know that in the intimacy of your heart, you've always been you as life. Yeah. Then comes your name, then comes the story, then comes the future, the possibilities, and everything else that comes on top of that. But your primary awareness, before your parents named you, before you even understood rationality, is you are a you. You are awareness. You are presence. You are aliveness. You're love incarnate. You are, your life force. Yeah? Now we forget that primary awareness and we start believing in the separate idea. And then the separate idea has another great idea. Oh, I've got to deal with myself first before I can connect to you as a separate idea. So for me, the sentence is all based on an illusion. So you can do that if you want. If you want to entertain yourself inside of, I'm just going to connect to myself before I connect to you. Right? But this is why I spoke to you at the beginning and talked about the paradigm shift. Yeah, in the I'd call it like the new mechanics or the new physics of this new reality we're emerging into. It's not new; it's always been here. We're just realizing it. Yeah. In this new awareness for us, because we've been asleep in the old version, yeah, of the world is flat, it's three-dimensional, and all these kind of things. Yeah, to recognizing I'm a multi-dimensional being that is never born and born at the same time. Yeah, I'm always alive. Yeah, part of me is not even in the body right now. Part of me is in my imaginal realm, spirit realm, visionary realm right now. Yeah, they coexist. There's a coexistence of multiple dimensions which operate all at once, all together, all the time. But we normally pay attention to the three-dimensional world, power, money, sex, because that's what we've been trained to do. Yeah. The last 30 years, I've spent most of my time expanding my consciousness, expanding my energy, yeah, inside of this principle that I'm a multidimensional being. Yeah, a few people have invited me into this. Right? They've invited me into this new awareness and then given me certain practices to try it out. Go test it out, see if it's true. See if you can travel into vision. See if you can travel into energy. See if you can connect to someone at a distance. If you can do that even once, and everybody does this, telepathy, empathy, sensitivity, right? It's ordinary for most people to have empathy. Oh, I know who's going to phone me. I was just thinking about you. I was thinking about you. Right? That only exists because there's a field of oneness between us. You see, how could it possibly function if there wasn't a unified field? Do you think that'd be pretty random sequencing, wouldn't it? If I was thinking of you thinking me at the same time, that's pretty high chance level for that to happen. Yeah. But when you recognize that we're already connected, and I'm tuning in, you're tuning in, and we're both listening to each other. So the new shift, right? This new shift, right, organizes your behavior differently, organizes your activity differently. Yeah, not as an effort, not as a trying, not with any discipline or motivational will. It organizes itself differently according to the vision that you hold. Yeah. So I encourage people to shift their vision and just enjoy the behavior shifting along with it. If I say to you, it's like tomorrow, I want you to really focus on the color green. Yeah, that really, and I don't know about you, where you live in the world, but it's like the world is so lush of green at the moment. The flowers, the trees, everywhere. The grass is growing, everything's ripening. Spring is here. Yeah? Now, just by saying that one thing, I'm giving you the invitation to focus on something. Yeah? And because you focus on it, you're going to see it more. You'll see more green tomorrow. Yeah, without any effort. It's like you have a vision of green, and then your behavior lines up with it. And you start to notice green all over the place. Yeah? It didn't take an effort. It's not a hard thing. Now, if you change the word green for heart, or green for love, or green for mystery, or wisdom, or wonder, or joy, yeah, you've just shifted your point of focus, and then the behavior and the action follows that easily. I do this every day. I've been doing this every day for years. I can tell you it's very, very easy. It's not effort. It's not will. It's not dominance. It's just a shift in paradigm. Yeah. It's about learning to recognize that primarily you're a heart. Yeah. You were born as heart. You're born as awareness. You're born as love. You're born as wisdom. Yeah. And all these stories that you're not enough, you don't deserve, you got to try, you got to please, all that's just rubbish. Yeah. That's conditional matrix stuff that you've believed in. Yeah. And once you can see it for what it is, you just let it go. You don't have to go to therapy about it, don't have to go to healing about it, don't have to process it. You just see it, let it go. Right? Come back to your nature, come back to your presence, come back to your wisdom, yeah? Which never left you, which can't leave you, is what you are. It's an invitation to you. It's like, for years and years, I had my mind as the center of my reference. And I used to, like, if the center of the pole was the mind, then everything rotates around it like a maypole. All the thoughts and ideas and ambitions. All right. But one day someone cuts your maypole down, all right, and it doesn't spin anymore, do you see? All right. But you notice, hang on a minute, I still exist. Right? To recognize you exist without the mind, you exist as awareness. Yeah. Right? Or maybe your maypole was the emotional body, that you live your life through your feelings and sensations. And then one day suddenly that maypole gets cut down and you realize you still exist. You exist as presence, you exist as awareness. If you go, it's not that difficult to discover this. You can go on a retreat for a weekend. What actually, I mean, for me, it took a little bit longer than that. I used to study with the Sufis. I went on an 8-day silent retreat with them. And the only time you're allowed to speak was when you were praying or singing or following a mantra. So like we were training ourselves to use intentional speech, from the heart, from prayerful attitude. And what you notice quite early on is you think a whole lot of bullshit most of the time. You're just wondering and wandering and distracted over all sorts of thoughts and ideas and things. And so I went on like a mental detox, and it took about 2 or 3 days where I stopped that kind of narcissus spinning round and round and round in this self-obsession, reflective thought process and everything else. And then there was silence. On about day 3, it's a bit like going on a food fast. I was on a thought fast. Yeah. On about day 3, I was very, very quiet. And I was like looking around. It's like there was this strange awareness about me, which was really unfamiliar, where there was silence. Yeah. Nothing was thinking. Nothing was talking. There was no entire internal dialogue. Then when I started to pray, I felt the full power of prayer. Yeah. It's like the words that came out of me from inside of me were so connected, with no distraction, with no, loss of energy. What I said is what I felt, is what I meant, is what was directed. It was like one line. Yeah? And I started to understand the nature of, powerful mantras and prayers and intentional speech. Now, if you look at the world, most people are just throwing their, words away, throwing their thoughts away, throwing their ideas away, in like, 2-second Facebook posts and Instagram, like me, love me, and, all the kind of self-obsession that we get lost inside of. What would it be like if we start to recognize the gift of the mind again? The gift of speech. Buddhism talks about this, right speech, right action. Yeah? And it's not right based on a morality, not right based on an idea, right based on its pure design. It's like it's designed to do this. Yeah, but we've been using it for a different design. We've been using it for this kind of egotistical, separate self-belief design. Yeah. So anyway, it took me 3 days of not speaking, and then the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days were deeply intimate about prayer. Then after a little while, I started to awaken this other voice inside me, which was, really shocked me at first. I started to hear this inner voice, yeah, which was really clear, loud, and audible, like this voice. Yeah, and it was the voice of my heart. It just spoke really cleanly, and all it said was wisdom. All it spoke was love. All it saw was beauty. Yeah, and it's like my most intimate voice was consciousness. Yeah, and it's here right now. Yeah, it's actually speaking right now, and you're listening right now from that perspective. It's here right now. Yeah, but most of the time we're paying attention to the top part of the river, which is kind of bumbling along with small talk and self-talk and all the other stuff. Yeah. So this is what meditation is about. It's what inquiry is about. Is what retreat is about. It's discovering the depth of the consciousness that you are and have always been. So when I said to you, I spent these last 30 years training, expanding consciousness and energy. Yeah, it's because I've entered into the paradigm that it's possible. You see, it's more interesting for me to be multidimensional than singly dimensional. Yeah, power and sex and money, I already know and can tell you, and everyone knows this, are going to be ultimately unsatisfying, however much you have. Right? Now, I'm not negating them. Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine to have loads of power, loads of sex, and loads of money. But why not do that in relationship to every other aspect of your being? You see, in the tantric view, we started off with this conversation, including everything. There's nothing wrong with money. We should have money to live, to survive, to celebrate, to share, to grow with. This toxicity around the idea of money and abundance, it comes from an old story of scarcity. That we had to survive, we had to push, we had to, dominate to get ahead of others. Yeah, new version of abundance is togetherness. Would you like to share anything, Philip?
Okay, then can you talk um, about conscious parenting for five,
Mm-hmm.
6 minutes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so part of my reintegration was noticing that I'd left parts of my childhood in the past. And I'd excluded parts of my self-expression, my imagination, my feeling. Yeah? And I knew that because I wasn't feeling it in the present. Like for a large part of my life, my physical body was feeling quite numb, disconnected. Yeah, I was quite abstracted. Yeah? And I started to recognize and notice, like, where is this coming from? What is the origin of this, absence of feeling, absence of emotion, absence of sensation? As I started to tune in, I recognized that there were parts of my childhood I'd left in the past that were scared and afraid to express, to live, to meet, to create boundaries, to create choices. So part of my inner work, if you like, was about noticing that the present situation I was in had a history to it. And I traveled back into the history of what caused the present numbness or disconnection and started bringing love and attention and inclusion there and listening, like really listening, deeply listening. Yeah. What I wasn't able to face as a child, I can now bring the adult self back to the child with awareness and wisdom and love and presence and parenting and include them. So I do a big work on inner child recovery or healing. This is part of the work I offer to reclaim the lost fragments of our childhood. In shamanism, they call that soul retrieval. Yeah? You can call it anything you like, yeah? But it's like pulling back together the scattered aspects of self. Yeah? And the way to do this, I found, is through listening and loving, including and accepting. Then what was initially a problem becomes a gift. Yeah? So the initial problem was, for me, not allowing myself to express fully what I felt at a certain point, like when I was 12 or 10 or 11. Yeah? In going into the healing work around this, I recovered my capacity for expression, courage to live, courage to imagine, courage to dream, yeah? Courage to embody. Yeah? So it actually took me into a gift in reverse. I flipped it over, and it's become part of my teaching methodology, my way of being. So my child happily now lives in my adult self, not back in the past, but right here in the present moment. Now I know that because I feel more in my body. I'm more playful. I'm more imaginative. I'm more open, communicative, ease of being. So my child is sitting happily inside my system. Now this is one aspect. Then you look at your teenage years and all the other years along this timeline, and you can do some internal healing work as you start to recover the lost aspects of self. Every time you do this, the frozen river unfreezes and gets more full. You see, like some of us is flowing and some of us is frozen. As you do the inner healing work, you start to unfreeze the river, and the river gets more, abundant, until ultimately there's just a river flowing with no frozen aspects. Yeah. So your mind is included, body's included, emotions included, pain's included, vision is included, everything's included. Everything's allowed, everything's have its perfect place. So this was my inner work, yeah, my preparedness, if you like. Yeah. Then I had this vision quite early on when I was 18, 19, 19, 20. I was actually a nanny for a 2-year-old girl. I had this idea I needed some parenting training. Yeah, just kind of knew somehow I was going to be a dad. And then I worked with youth clubs and, did lots of dance teaching for kids. And all this time it was training me in like connecting to children, connecting with their vision, their presence, their energy, supporting them, empowering them, encouraging them, yeah, and learning from, presence, vitality, energy. And then when I was quite young, I connected to my first wife, and she had 2 boys, and I was their stepfather for several years, and had my own son. And this last year, I had my own daughter as well. So it's like this wholeness, between all the kids that have come into my life. Yeah? But I felt that there was this preparedness, yeah? And this preparedness was partly doing my inner journey into recovering my own inner child and feeling comfortable with this, awake with this. Yeah? Now, conscious parenting It's like, one way to understand how you're going to be as a parent is how are you to your own inner child? You don't even have to have kids to know this, yeah? It's like, are you kind to yourself? Are you loving? Are you nourishing? Are you supportive? Or are you critical? Are you dominant? Are you aggressive? Are you denying? Yeah? So if you are those things, then recognize, well, maybe there's a bit of healing work to be done internally. So you can like imagine your child at any moment on the timeline and send love and beauty and listening there as your adult self. And then what I do at the end of it is I bring right back into the chest, breathe in, say, you're welcome here. You're welcome here. I include you here. What do you need? What is your need? And sometimes your child then starts to wake up inside of you, inside of your dreams, inside of your behaviors, and says, you know what, I need to play more. I want to paint. I want to dance. I want to go travel. Yeah. And we think sometimes this is our adult self, but sometimes it's our child self, which has been given permission to live again. Yeah? All of this internal awakening, awareness, and realization opens you up in such a beautiful way that when you have your own children, you are ready to receive them. Like eager, enthusiastic. Yeah? Hopefully along the way, you start to realize it's not useful to condition your kids. Yeah, give them a few boundaries here and there, but not to superimpose a condition upon them. Yeah? You want them to be like you. You want your children to be like them. Yeah? And then you start to recognize my role as a parent is to be their guardian and support and listener and encourager and nourishment. Yeah? It's not to tell them what to be or tell them what to do. Yeah, maybe provide opportunities and possibilities. Yeah, but what you're really doing all the time is this nourishing presence. I see you. I see you. I'm with you. I support you. I love you. Yeah, the child knows how to grow itself. You see, you provide the soil, the seed grows. Yeah, so it's just like a different view on parenting. Instead of like the child knows nothing, got to instruct them, tell them as if they're like this kind of completely blank, vacant creature. You start to see the soul that's come into your privileged, care and guardianship. Yeah, you start to see the wholeness of the nature, the one who's here. And so I call this parenting with surprise. Yeah? It's like you parent with curiosity, not with dominance, not with outcomes. Or one day they'll grow up to be a doctor or a great person. You don't superimpose onto the child. Yeah? What I do is much like a horse whisperer does, is you get down to the level of the horse, or up to the level of the horse, it's a big horse, and you listen and feel. With a child, you get down on your knees, you get down into their world, climb into their world. My daughter's she's crawling, she's about to start standing, she's standing now, and she's about to start walking. Yeah? So I'm in her world, in her way. What does she need right now? Yeah? Instead of not what I can tell her to do. So hopefully again, this is about relationship. Yeah? So for me, parenting is more about listening. It's more about guardianship. It's more about support. It's more about generous love and curiosity. I'm curious to see who she is being and who she is becoming. Yeah, and she indicates to me often, I like flowers. I like the birds. So we pass by the flowers, we spend a bit more time, and we do this kind of sniffing thing. Go to all the flowers. Yeah, the birds fly in the sky. We stop. We look at them. Yeah, because she's indicated she loves these things. Yeah, so I stop. I pause. I might have walked past that flower in the past. I might not have stopped to listen to that bird, but she's calling my attention to it because there's a joy in there. Yeah? So you start to follow joy, start to follow bliss, start to follow curiosity. Yeah. Then you see the blessing of the whole thing. Your parenting is no longer this pressure. I've got to mold them into this character and they've got to fit into society and do this and this and this in the future. You parent from presence. You see? And in this moment, there's just wonder present. It's such a gift. They remind you constantly to wake up to your own wonder and gratitude. And, if you haven't realized yet, it's all about love. I don't know what you think life's about or anyone else thinks life's about, but it boils down to it's about love. It's about present. It's about connection. That's the only thing that you care about on your deathbed, but don't wait till then to care about it. Recognize it right now, live from your heart, and start to celebrate, in connection with others. So these are some of the gifts that come from conscious parenting. But then I use exactly the same skill set or awareness set when I teach. I don't think I really told you. I'm a dance facilitator, I'm a shamanic guide, I'm a life coach. I do these activities to help support and empower and encourage people. But I'm pretty much using the same skill set as I just described to you with conscious parenting. Yeah? Awareness, presence, listening, encouragement. Yeah. What do you want? What is your way? What is your direction? What are your questions? Yeah. So you're engaging very deeply with the other person. So how does that all feel with you? That's my
Yeah,
5 minutes
that's
of parenting.
yeah, that's beautiful. Time, but I feel like that I have one more question.
No, no, it's okay. Listen, ask a
How
question.
do you think we can share this teaching more or in schools or
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the first place as a parent, shared teaching is by example. Yeah. So this is the obvious, you know, every mystery school has always said this, lead by example. You know, be the change you want to see in the world. There's all the cliches that refer to this. Yeah. Be what you're saying. Be your word. You know, walk your talk. You know, it's in every direction. It comes back to like, you know, be authentic. Yeah. So you know your stuff, not by knowing it in knowledge, by knowing it in action. Yeah. And recognizing the time that you step off the path or fall off the horse, or you become forgetful, or you make a so-called mistake. Yeah? Learn from it. Yeah. Okay. I shouted. I judged. I conditioned. I manipulated. I controlled. Catch yourself. Catch yourself in the middle of it. Apologize. Change the behavior. Come back in alignment with your deepest heart value. Yeah. I'm here to support. I'm here to nourish. I'm here to love. Yeah. Now, that does begin with yourself, see? I mean, I know we talked about this earlier on. It's like it begins with the awakening inside yourself that it's more preferable to be in self-love and nourishment with all the aspects of your being, because then everything relaxes. I read an article yesterday. I don't know if this is true. I don't know how it could possibly be measured, but they suggested that most human beings live 75% of the day in the sympathetic nervous system on adrenal fight flight, yeah? Well, that suggests there's only 25%, which is even less than our normal sleep time, is in the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so I read this a few days ago. Today we found this fantastic open air swimming pool, salt water, you know, out in nature, and the sun was shining, and we were just swimming, and I felt myself melting. Yeah, the water was soft on my skin. There's no chlorine. There was no, you know, toxicity chemicals in the water, and I was just relaxing. The sun, the air, you know, the water. And I felt my parasympathetic nervous system just like switch on, took a deep breath and felt myself melting into the water. And I realized, you know, this was like 5, 6 o'clock in the day. I realized, wow, I haven't done that today. I'd waited till 6 o'clock in the evening to take my first deep breath. Yeah. And so, you know, even doing all this work, I still have to keep reminding myself it's important to slow down. The parasympathetic nervous system is very, very important. You know, it gives us access to all the different dimensions. If we're constantly running the sympathetic nervous system, we're in stress response. Yeah. So it's about learning to drop in, to soften, to soften, to soften. Sorry, I forgot your question, Philip. I was just lost in the swimming experience.
Me too, actually. I forgot the question too. But I noticed just speaking with you or hearing you or you describing something, I noticed the melting, the awareness and the presence
Mhm.
too
Mhm.
inside
Oh, that
myself.
was your question. That was your question. Is that, and I was suggesting to you to be the example. So this is great that you're feeling that. See,
Yeah.
right? So this is an example that what I'm saying to you is authentic to me. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm not trying to get you to believe or follow or any of that stuff. I'm just sharing my experience, and you're resonating with it without any effort, and you're feeling my transmission, which is soft and calm and, you know, fluid and vibrant and wisdom based and all sorts of other things. Yeah? So you're kind of coming into osmosis with what I'm transmitting, because inside of you, you probably recognize it's true. Do you see? That's why, you know, there would be a softening in your system, is that part of your body's like, oh, finally, I can relax into my inner child. I'm already a conscious parent. My heart is my essence. It's like all of these things are like huge existential relaxations. I can give up my narcissism, my struggle, my survival, my insecurity, my low self-esteem. It's like it just drops away. And that's what I was saying to you earlier on. Shift the view, everything else shifts with it. If you spent all day tomorrow breathing into your heart and stabilizing your heart presence, all your behavior would start to line up with your heart, you see. There wouldn't be any stress, there wouldn't be any conflict, there wouldn't be any confusion. There'd just be heart presence, love, and wisdom. So that's day one. Day two, you bounce in between on the trampoline effect. You're half your mind, half your heart, right? But you're going to conquer this. You're going to, really bring a bit of attention into the heart because it's important. Yeah. And the more you fall in love with your heart, the more your focus goes there. You see, your focus goes with what you love. And for some reason or other, we fall in love with the mind because everyone else says the mind is who you are. It makes up your personality. People think it makes up you. You're not your thoughts. Those are contents. You're the consciousness. You're the awareness behind the thoughts. Right? So once you know that, you can drop the mind. You can drop the attention on thinking and believing. Then you relax. Yeah? Then you start to get really curious. They're like, wow, if I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions and sensations, but I can utilize them, who am I? Then you start to recognize, wow, I'm presence. I'm awareness. I'm awake. I'm alive. It's not a great philosophical statement. It doesn't need a whole paragraph. I recognize I'm alive. That's it. That's it. Any great mystic who's telling you 1,000 words, it's kind of missed the point. It's simple, it's obvious, it's now. Yeah. So in the transmission of this, which you're recognizing at some degree, and hopefully people listening are recognizing at some degree as a feeling, as a knowing, suddenly this starts to become more and more your reality because you start to become more interested in it. Yeah. The turning point comes when you get more interested in your heart than in your thoughts or your bank balance or what you're going to achieve in the future. Trusting, like people call it having faith in the unknown, the unseen, but having faith in your heart is what I'm made of. It's what life is made of. Yeah. And I would get a good practice of meditation or some kind of internal inquiry, which allows you to go behind the mind, behind the emotion, behind the sensation, and drop into presence. I spent a lot of time in meditation, to stabilize that, to stabilize awareness, to notice when I was getting distracted in my thinking, to notice when I was getting attached to externals or following other people's beliefs or opinions. So I can notice it quite quickly, not all the time, but I notice it quite quickly and drop it and come back to presence. So it's a bit of a hide and seek game. But the more you fall in love with your heart, the easier it becomes to remain in and as your heart. You see? And then all your behavior originates from there. That's the inside out approach. When you are your heart, the only thing that expresses is your heart. You see? Self-realization, self-expression. It's natural. It's a natural consequence. It's an outflowing of what you know from the inside. Yeah. Thanks, Philip. I mean, it's like you've opened up a lot of beautiful things here in this conversation. Appreciate it.
Can you tell the people how can we reach you? Or
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm pretty sure my name is a Dancing Heart Guy. On Facebook, I'm Guy Barrington. Email address to connect to me on is colibriheart1@gmail.com. And what I offer one-to-one online, wherever you are in the world, is what I call Heart Fire Life Coaching. And I love this work. It's like, just one-to-one, and we go through your blocks and resistance and limitations and move into the beautiful spaciousness of your heart and learn to stabilize this. And do the healing work and do the transformation work so you start to live on purpose, as vision, as love, as beauty, as you're meant to. Get into your natural design. So it's real beautiful transformational life coaching work, which coaches you back into life. Most coaches don't use that sentence, but for me, that's what life coaching is. I'm coaching you back into your own life, into your own aliveness, to support you in discovering that. I've got lots of online courses. I'm also a DJ on Mixcloud. I've got loads of beautiful music sets there. Got loads of videos. I do loads of different things. I'm writing some books and Audible stuff. It's all saying the same kind of thing in different ways for different eyes and ears and listening. And I would say my main work is as a dancing heart part facilitator. I run a school in Czech Republic and in Holland, and also have some online things around that, and shamanic trance dance journey work. I do lots of different things. But if you want to connect to me at the beginning, just say hi. I'm curious. Guy Barrington, come and look me up. And it's been lovely. Thanks very much, Philip, for inviting me to come on this call. And all those listening, really hope that you've received some benefit from this and are curious and open and feeling more melted and heartful.
So I want to thank you for your presence, for your loving presence, and for your wisdom. Um, yeah, yeah. I wish you good night. Yeah, the question was, do you do something offline right now, or
Yeah, yeah. No, we're in Czech Republic and things are opening up. This Sunday, I've got something I call Sunday Dance Temple in Prague. That's 11 till 1. It's a 2 hour just beautiful dance journey. Probably in the next month, I do something called Medicine Dance, which is shamanic journey work. That's going to be in person. And we've got a festival at the end of August in Czech Republic called the Sacred Dance Gathering. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. We've all been indoors too much for too long.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the sun is out, and people are getting out and about and doing their things again. And it's such a relief to be able to be back in amongst people and sharing the work of dance. So I love it.
yeah. So I studied in Prague. So
Hmm.
maybe one day when I come back to Prague, I would love to meet
Mm,
you offline.
fantastic. Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah. Then um, have a beautiful night. Uh,
Thank you, Filip. Hmm.
thank you,
Yeah,
brother. See you.
yeah. Okay, bye bye for now. Yeah, bye bye. And bye bye,
Bye bye.
everyone. Thanks for watching.